So greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Del Barcy. As always, if you like what you see and hear, give us a like, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Today, I have two guests, Lyn McCright and Teresa Walding. Lyn is an APRN, an advanced practice nurse with a master's in public health, and Teresa Walding is a BSN RN. And Lyn is the director, of advancing nurse coaching and executive nurse coaching programs. And Teresa is the associate director. These two nurses love helping nurses and licensed health professionals tap into their innate resilience by learning invaluable coping skills, self-care, and instruction on how to handle the stresses of nursing and healthcare. Their program, Using the Resilience Principles, was created with you in mind. It is completely virtual, self-paced, with rolling enrollment. People can start anytime, and they can be connected through their website, which is nursecoaching.com. And that website will be in the description box. So welcome, Lyn and Teresa.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate you both taking the time to speak with me today.
Oh, we're so glad to be here.
So let's start with this, because I've always wanted to know, for me, it's always intriguing why people become nurses. So if I can start with you, Lyn, why are you a nurse?
Well, I think I really was inspired by my mother's aunt and her sister. They both were nurses, but I especially remember when I was about 8 or 9 years old, we had an old dog that was dying, and my parents allowed me to sit with her the whole time. And it was just such a beautiful, sacred space for me to be there. And I think that really is when I decided, but the clincher was when I was in the hospital at 16 getting my tonsils out. And there were two physicians at the foot of my bed talking about me. And I did not understand a single word they said. And I knew I had to learn the language.
You know, I had a similar experience, only for me, it was, I was 10 and I was actually having my tonsils out also. But prior to that, I wanted to be a doctor. My father, one of my dad's cousins, was a doctor. And I think at the time she was the only female doctor I knew. And I just wanted to be just like her until I had my tonsils out at 10. I was like, oh, I think maybe this is what I want. What about you, Teresa?
So I can remember two specific incidences that solidified my desire to be a nurse. One, when I was 7, walking home from school, and I tripped and fell on the gravel. And back then we had block moms. And so she came running out and picked me up and brought me in the house and washed my knee off. And she said, "Is it okay if my daughter puts this Band-Aid on your knee? She wants to be a nurse." And I was like, oh, I want to be a nurse. So that was my first idea. The second one, when I was 18, I was in the hospital and I had a tumor on my ovary taken out. And I didn't want to be there, and I was pregnant, and it was just a really low time. And this nurse came in and she said, "I can tell that you're struggling." And she said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to finish my charting, and then I'm going to come in here and just sit with you." And I looked up and I could see her name, and I don't remember her name, but she had BSN after her name. And she came in and I turned my back, and I never felt so cared for in my whole life. And I thought, I want to be that. Of course, I've been taking care of babies since I was 5. I used to change my brother's diapers, so I always wanted to help people. And so that was my first knowledge of wanting to be a nurse. And then one day when I was 24, I was sitting at lunch with a friend, and she said, "So what do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "I'm going to be a nurse." And she said, "Well, when are you going to start that?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm 24. I better do something about this."
Indeed.
And I signed up for nursing school that day. So it was kind of full circle there as far as like those little nudges.
Yeah. So you know, both of you once started to think about this and wanted to do this when you were children. When you got to it though, was it what you thought it would be?
Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. I absolutely loved it. When I was in school, I actually had the opportunity to be the president of our Student Nurses Association. And what I found there was that I love nurses as much as I love the patients.
Okay. Okay.
And it's always been that way for me, you know, both groups, my colleagues and my clients at the same time.
I know that neither of you are any longer at Bedside, but how long did you spend at Bedside? What kind of work did you do? What kind of areas did you practice in?
Mine was primarily public health out in the community, although I did everything from ICU to med surg and continuing or education, staff education in the hospital. I just, I have loved everything that I've ever done in nursing, but I did have to decide when I graduated which was going to get me out of bed in the morning. And I thought, well, I really liked psych, but when I looked at the numbers and how things changed for people who were going through a psych, the patients didn't seem to improve much, but I could see that in public health they did. So that's how I decided between those two.
And for me, I started out in ICU as a new grad and loved it. And then I went to cardiopulmonary rehab, and then I always said I would never do skilled nursing or rehab. Well, I ended up doing it and absolutely loved it.
Loved it, yes.
I thought, how can you decide you don't like something till you try it? And then I opened a geriatric psych unit.
Okay.
My hospital, and from buying all the furniture to putting all the team together and taking care of the patients, and I love that too.
Yeah.
And then I worked, it sounds kind of funny, but I spent 20 years in PACU, but during that time I still branched out and worked a lot of different places. I did PD home health, I did education, I taught continuing education at the hospital as well as with Lyn. So I just, wherever the opportunity comes that my nursing skills are a fit, I like to do it because there's so much out there to help people with.
Yeah. And the thing is that, you know, your nursing skills translate really across so many boards. You can just do just about, I can't think of anything that you can't do if you're a nurse, really.
Right.
And I love that aspect about nurse coaching, which we see to be the leading edge of nursing now. It applies to all clinical areas.
Yeah.
So there's no place that you can't use coaching if you're working in neonatal ICU, working with parents and babies, if you're working with the end of life, hospice and home health, everything else in between, school nursing, clinic, you name it. It's just so applicable across the board because nurses are here to share with the public and in the best possible way. So what we have now is an opportunity really to bring that connection. I know every year since 2011, nursing has been considered to be the most ethical and most honest of professions. And that connection that we have with the public is what will really bring nurse coaching to the fore. And I'm just so excited to be here now. We actually work with the American Holistic Nurses, and we work with the Holistic Nurses Certification Corporation so that our students can be board certified nurse coaches.
Yeah.
The only thing, okay, so nursing is the very first and the only profession that offers board certification in coaching. We're way ahead of the curve, and we've been here since 2013 certifying nurses.
I didn't realize it was the only one.
The only one. Nursing is ahead of the game. How about that?
Again, actually, if you think about it, in many ways, nursing has always been ahead of the game. I'm so gratified these days that nurses are stepping out and showing up, because we have not traditionally put forward ourselves very much. We have learned a lot, we can do a lot, we become very innovative and all of that, and yet very often we don't put forward ourselves. And I see that nurses are breaking out of that mode. I'm so happy to see that happening.
Yeah, there actually has been recently a study done by the National Institutes of Health. And what it showed is that 25% of the certified nurse coaches are in the hospital, 25% are in private practice, but the other 50% are all across the board out in the community, doing everything from school nursing to end of life, labor, midwifery. It just is so applicable to all areas.
Yeah. Teresa, I know that you are you're big in holistic nursing. What drew you to holistic nursing, really?
Pain. I wanted to find something. I had always been drawn to holistic health. I grew up going to a naturopathic doctor and chiropractors. That was our healthcare. So I was drawn to that from the beginning. When I found aromatherapy when I was like 8 or 9, I was like, oh, I loved it, and I learned how to use it. And I took classes and bought it, and I just knew, even from a small child, there was more to life than just the sick care.
Yes.
To the doctor, that wasn't. I thought, well, you only need to go to the doctor like if you have a problem. The rest of the time, don't we want to be healthy? Yes. And so I looked for the ways to be healthy. And so that was what drew me to holistic nursing. Was I didn't know that there was a Holistic Nurses Association till I met Lyn in 2010.
Okay.
So I was out here by myself for 10 or 15 years, finding things for myself, and then when I found the holistic nurses, that opened up a really big world of a lot of different modalities that helped people. And then when I needed it for myself, I started trying all of them, but I was still looking. I still didn't get the long-term healing because I was having some chronic pain. Yeah. I realize now was emotional pain. I didn't know that at the time. I thought I was handling things okay, according to how I knew life worked. And then I found what we're doing in our school, which we're calling the resilience principles, which is how our thinking affects everything, our mental health, our physical health, the world around us. And I knew I came home. I knew that was what I had written a goal about. It has to be over 20 something years ago. I wanted to find something that would help people in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, when no one's around. Because that's when people cry uncle. That's when they are like, I don't know what else to do. I'm scared. I need to go to the ER. And what these principles taught me was that I can make up a lot of scenarios in my head and believe them, and none of them are true. But I didn't know that. It looked like I needed to pay attention because I didn't know what to do. And this helped me settle down and started this new journey of teaching this way of how life works, how mental health works, to other people, because I saw everyone around me was suffering as well. And we wanted to help them.
Is that a difficult concept to get across?
It is a little bit, until you realize that you are the thinker. You're the one that's thinking all the time, and your thoughts create a feeling in your body that you respond to that creates your life. Yeah. You live in the feeling of your thinking at all times. And if you can hear that is it. it's this other part of us that doesn't believe that, or tries to say, well, I can see that some of the time, but I see that my circumstances are causing me a problem, and it looks like there's a problem. And so that's actually where the work comes in, is helping people see, no, it really is the way you think about it.
It really is.
Causing your distress. Yeah. We're not separate from our body. You know, every single thought builds a new neuron in our brain. That's how connected we are. So as soon as we have one, that's why when you think it, you feel it. And then say if you have a thought like, I'm scared, I need to run, I don't know what to do, our bodies are perfectly tuned to start the hypothalamus, adrenal, pituitary cascade. And that the cascade that's the axis, but it creates increased blood pressure, dumps all our sugar from our liver. So you can see how we get the dis-ease that we see in society. So I've seen people who thought they were going to die with atrial fibrillation, and they did. I saw someone who wasn't supposed to live, and he lived.
Yeah.
And what's the difference?
Yeah.
So that it's powerful. It truly is. It's how I found that, you know, people talk about the mind-body connection. That's how I found it, was realizing, oh, it's my thoughts, my feelings. And I still kind of am, but I was a really big worrier back when I had my chronic pain. And for 5 years, that was the one thing I thought was going to make me leave nursing, is I was tired and I was hurting. And when I heard that I was the one creating all of
this,
I had this experience of like, do you ever get that feeling like when you see something and you're like, oh my gosh, that's how that works? And
yeah.
you feel it in your whole body?
Yeah.
Well, I felt that in my whole body, like in these tingles that just went through my body and out my hands and feet, and the pain went away. And I thought, all right, there's something here. There's something about how we work that's beyond what I had known. It wasn't a tool or a technique. It was a knowing that, and we nurses have it. We have that intuition.
Have it. Yeah.
We actually have a colleague in Nepal who was working in the community with people, and her special area actually was disaster. But she had read just the back of a book in a bookstore, put it back on the shelf. But what she read said that our feeling comes 100% of the time from our thought. And when the first of the 11 earthquakes occurred, she remembered that. And she realized for herself that that was true. Just in a moment, she realized that. And so she was able to share with her entire community when they were not even sleeping indoors because they were afraid that the roof was going to fall in. They stayed outside. And her little 3-year-old niece was, whenever the quake came, she would tell everybody, okay, come on, everybody, let's dance. The earth is dancing. Let's dance with the earth. And they only wanted to hear over and over again, there's nowhere else to be. There's nowhere else to be. There's nowhere else to be. To be safe, knowing that your feelings come from your thoughts. You're as safe as you've ever been.
As you are. Yeah, that's huge. That's really huge. Really huge. So you've both started this this coaching business, and as you said, you told me you started it globally. You started on 3 continents at once. How was that? What were the challenges with that?
Well, we have a big vision for nursing, because we know that the problems of nursing are the same worldwide. And I'm very fortunate to have been married, I am still, to a military man, and
Okay.
has lived in Europe, and we have lived in Asia. And so I've lived in these places where my students are, and I feel perfectly at home there. It's been, you know, since English is our common language, that's what unites us, and that's what we use right now. I'm sure that our work will be translated. It's already not our work as in nursing, but the principles that we work with are already in 63 countries. But we are bringing what we describe as the revolution to nursing.
Awesome. Really awesome. Awesome.
It has to change. And there are a couple of ways that that can happen. One is through evolution, and things have been changing gradually. But Florence Nightingale told us in the year 1870, what she said is that it will be 150 years before people see the kind of nursing that I envision. That year is 2020. And she wasn't talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
She was talking about what we are creating now. And each of us are bringing our own separate thread.
Yeah.
I know that one way I love to describe it, Martha Dawson, who's president of the National Black Nurses, told us that we're each bringing our own separate thread, and we're different weights, textures, colors, and it all looks on the back like a bunch of strings hanging down. But when you turn it over, it's a beautiful tapestry.
That's quite a visual.
Isn't it beautiful?
That's quite a visual.
Creating. Each of us is bringing our own thread to that creation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite a visual indeed. Yeah. So Teresa, I realize that Lyn's experience, Lyn lived in different places, worked in different places. So her experience was a little different from yours. How was this translating for you into, you know, a global entrepreneur? Because that's how I see you.
I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. I got to meet people from, you know, Zoom brings people together. People I would never get to meet right here in my room. And yeah. I actually wrote a presentation. I've never done it, but on the virtual reality that we live in right now, that's what this is.
Yeah.
And it's connecting people who would never otherwise have the opportunity to meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think embracing the technology to keep the human relationship alive is very important, because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We can resist it all we want, but I personally love it. I get to meet people from everywhere. Yeah. And would I love to go visit them? Absolutely. I met a friend on Facebook about a month before I went back to Boise, Idaho, which is where I grew up. And she goes, I'm in Salt Lake. And she goes, I want you to stop and see me. So on the way home, I stopped at her house and stayed the night. Now, in another lifetime, that would have never happened. So being able to build these relationships, we've met our students at the HNA National Conference. We feel like we know them.
Yeah.
We indeed. Just get to see them in person now.
Indeed, indeed.
So
I'm collecting these words. I have to. I'm collecting these words. I need to know what nurses think of nurses when we look at each other. What are the qualities that we see? So, if you had to describe the most essential quality of a nurse in just one word, what would that word be?
Resilient.
Yours is resilient. Okay.
Compassionate.
Compassionate. Okay. Compassionate comes up fairly often. Resilience, once or twice.
She stole my word. No.
So if you had to give someone advice about becoming a nurse, what would it be in the last few minutes? I see Zoom is telling me.
Oh, it's taking care of yourself first. the holistic nurses say that we're taking care of the patient, body, mind, and spirit, but we have to do that for ourselves first. Take care of the nurse first,
Yeah.
body, mind, and spirit.
Indeed, indeed. And that's something that has to become a mantra, because we don't do it enough.
Oh no, you know, we have to recognize that, and
Yeah.
we're slow in opening our eyes to it.
What about you, Teresa?
I think I'm with Lynn. You know,
Yeah.
that was what got me where I was wanting to leave nursing. So if someone wants to be a nurse, know what health looks like. Become that image of health yourself first, and then know how to do it, because that's what will bring that to everyone you touch.
Indeed.
Well, and the
Indeed.
principles show us that every person within has health. We just have to see them, that health within them. Doesn't matter what their diagnosis is, even to the last day, they have health within. And our job now is to open our eyes to see that.
On that beautiful note, that's a really high note. Thank you so very much to both of you ladies. Lyn and Teresa, thank you very much. I truly appreciate this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So what did you, ooh.